Hey guys, welcome back to the Reading Stack. I'm Hunter, and today I have an interesting book to share with you, a book I just finished. It is The Confessions by St. Augustine, and The Confessions are a book he wrote in about the year 400. My copy of it was 347 pages. It's really showing St. Augustine, a guy that according to himself was a really severe sinner, his journey into becoming a saint, and he's definitely one of the most integral and important figures in Western Christianity and in the history of the West. And this book really just shows his journey from a boy into who he is as a man, at the time he wrote around the year 400. And he really charges this is his biography, his autobiography, so he's writing about his life, applying it in various ways and running down different lanes of that. And what's interesting, this book kind of takes the form, most autobiographies of course is just going to be stuff like I did this, so on, and it's primarily the author just relaying to the audience things. But Augustine, his takes the form almost of a prayer, where he begins just on the first page, even with in book 1. It's in 12 books, I believe the book is divided in. He does it kind of like a catechism, like he answers his own question several times through the story, but also just a general prayer to the Lord. He says, "You made us for yourself, and our hearts find no peace until they rest in you. Grant me, Lord, to know and understand whether a man is first to pray to you for help or to praise you, and whether he must know you before he can call you to his aid. If he does not know you, how can he pray to you? For he may call for some other help, mistaking it for yours." He takes several different dialogues, but really if you're reading this, it's almost like at some points like three people in conversation, three people in the focus. It is Augustine, it's you the reader, but it's also to God as he relays and confesses things in his life, sins, or just giving testimony to what happened in the past with people and events, as well as he offers thanksgiving, a significant part of prayer. He offers supplications or petitions. Those are just fancy words for what we would call like a prayer, a request. And then also adoration, where he's really expounding on the character of God, about how God had watched over him through all of his life's journey, even when he was lost. So he reflects on God in his autobiography and on creation and some scriptures and things. So the book is very interesting. It's really, I would say, a very hybrid type of autobiography. It's very different than what most of you read, and the book has a lot of value even if you are not a believer, in how really he goes deep into philosophy, taking things from Plato, taking things from just the different Greek prominent and Roman philosophers, I'm sure, but he was well read and steeped in that philosophy, and I believe he does refer to Aristotle quite a bit at one point, if I remember correctly. And also the book really has psychological value. I know a lot of people in a modern reading that I've read about have enjoyed it that way, that he really talks about what he felt inwardly and internally in his mind, his psyche, how it was impacted through sin or through goodness, grief, things like that. So it's very internal as well, and he doesn't just relay, I went here, did this, did that, but also the journey of the heart through Augustine's life and to where he ended up. And to give more perspective on what the book's like, I want to read a few more quotes just to show you what it's like. He says this: "All things are beautiful because you are their maker, but you who made them all are more beautiful than they, far more so than words can tell. So that aspect of his prayer where it goes into adoration, listing and applying the attributes of God. Yeah, one really interesting passage he has here, it reads, "True happiness is to rejoice in the truth, for to rejoice in the truth is to rejoice in you, O God, who are the truth. You, my God, and my true light, to whom I look for salvation. This is the happiness that all desire. All desire this, the only true state of happiness. All desire to rejoice in truth. I have known many men who wish to deceive, but none who wish to be deceived." I thought that was a very good line of reasoning, that he said, in a sense, that all men are attracted to the truth because no one enjoys being deceived, no one enjoys being tricked. So I thought that was a good line of reasoning there, very logical step. He says this also, definitely a prayer and a statement, a conversation with God in the middle of his biography. He says, "I have learnt to love you late, beauty at once so ancient and so new. I have learnt to love you late. You were within me and I was in the world outside myself. I searched for you outside myself, and disfigured as I was, I fell upon the lovely things of your creation. You were with me, but I was not with you." So I think that's a really important thing also in the midst of this, where Augustine's talking to God. He's talking about his life and being marred by sin early on, but how later in life it took him a while in this journey he takes you along to where he comes around to being reconciled with God and enjoying that true beauty. Whereas he talks about that he had a really bad struggle with lust when he was supposed to be taking this wife. He took a mistress instead and left the woman he was supposed to be betrothed to, and so that's a big theme in the storyline, how he dealt with that to get to where he was living a holier life, a sanctified life. He says this, "The good of the Spirit is to cling to you forever, so that it may not, by turning away from you, lose the light which it gained by turning towards you, and relapse into that existence which resembles the dark depths of the sea." So he talks about getting closer to God, who is the true light, as that quote said before. Your life becomes illumined by that presence of God. But when we turn away from God, which as Augustine relays very honestly in his experience, when you turn away from God, your life darkens. We would say it loses clarity and that joy that he really connects to the light, that it's a relapse into a life like the dark depths of the sea. And he talks a lot about his life in detail. I've been reading most of the quotes that are very, those ones that are very much him in conversation to God, deep in prayer. But in some of the books in here, within Confessions, he talks about the details, fine details of his life. And I thought this was interesting, where he says, "At Carthage, on the other hand, the students are beyond control, and their behavior is disgraceful. They come blustering into the lecture rooms like a troop of maniacs, and upset the orderly arrangements which the master has made in the interest of his pupils. Their recklessness is unbelievable, and they often commit outrages which ought to be punished by law, were it not that custom protects them. Nevertheless, it is a custom which only proves their plight the more grievous, because it supposedly sanctions behavior which your eternal law will never allow." So that's very interesting, talking about, he talked about when he went to Rome to be a teacher, how the behavior was so much better than in his native Carthage in North Africa. But he talks about the laws making things where they're more normal or custom, but things that, God would oppose. So that's a pretty interesting concept of law and thought, I thought, that Augustine had there. And the troop of maniacs, wild students. And then here's a good quote he has that I think really applies well to crime and actions, and if you're interested in things like that, he has this to say: "Crimes against other men are committed when the emotions which spur us to action are corrupt and rise in revolt without control. Sins of self-indulgence are committed when the soul fails to govern the impulses from which it derives bodily pleasure. In the same way, if the rational mind is corrupt, mistaken ideas and false beliefs will poison life. In those days my mind was corrupt. I did not know if it was to share in the truth, it must be illumined by another light, because the mind itself is not the essence of truth. For it is you, Lord, that keep the lamp of my hope still burning and shine on the darkness about me. We have all received something out of your abundance, for you are the true light which enlightens every soul born into the world, because with you there can be no change, no swerving from your course." One thing that's very interesting is his praying mom, how Augustine was living out there, but his mom always prayed for him that he would become a servant of God, and that his mom was weeping for him, shedding tears over the spiritual death of her son, that mattered so much more to her than even the physical life of Augustine, that Augustine wouldn't die spiritually, wouldn't experience God's wrath, and so stayed in prayer. She and Augustine saw those prayers of hers being answered through his life and through his biography, his story, and how she prayed at all hours and just offered many tears for Augustine. And he also explores how it took a long time. It wasn't just outright overnight, but that God had heard her prayers, but still he was left, as he puts it, wriggling around in the dark. So it took a lot of patience, but ultimately the answer became evident. A famous line on page 169 is, he said, "As a youth I had been woefully at fault, particularly in early adolescence. I had prayed to you for chastity and said, 'Give me chastity and continence,' but not yet. For I was afraid that you would answer my prayer at once and cure me too soon of the disease of lust, which I wanted satisfied, not quelled." So it's very interesting him saying that prayer, but don't answer it yet, to God, and very interesting prayer. And one thing that's pretty cool is Augustine, is a good storyteller. He tells these kind of aside remarks, these stories of people he met, and their conversion experience of coming to God, or just different happenings that happened in different things that would happen in Carthage or Rome. I hope you've gotten something out of this review I've done of Confessions. It is such a good book, a true classic of Western civilization, of Christian literature, autobiographies in general. It is truly a special book, and I think I was really blown away by the book. Early on, I think I had quite a bit of enthusiasm to read it. As I started to read it, it probably diminished a little bit, but then I'd say it just grew as I read the book. I really enjoyed it. I really want to read it again sometime, and I now want to move on to The City of God by Augustine. Confessions is real easy, real simple, real short, and such a powerful story, hearing how this great sinner became a great saint. One thing that really made sense to me, he said, that I'd never really heard anyone else write about, is he talked about how he was, running with a gang of his friends, kids, and he would brag and tell them about sins and things that he had done that he really hadn't, to get kind of to build his credibility among his friends, to brag and boast, but it was things he never did, and he confesses that to God. And I can't remember anything in particular, but it seems like something I definitely did in my younger days. Augustine really bears all and tells it straight, what he felt, what was happening, what it's like being a kid, teenager, a young man. It's just really solid. He wrote this only 12 years after being converted and becoming a Catholic, just in that short time. It's really amazing, but such a good story. So I hope you will check it out and not sleep on this book. Alright guys, thank y'all so much for watching. I hope y'all have a great day, and we'll have more books for you on the reading stack soon. Bye.